This is All Things Fitness and Wellness, uniting industry thought leaders and fitfluencers on the mission to inspire innovation and encourage people to live a life fit and well. Brought to you by Fitness World, your fitness, your way. Visit fitnessworld.ca. Every single year, thousands of people across the globe take part in a polar bear swim to kick off the new year. It's an annual tradition that's often many people's first introduction into cold water immersion. But the cold therapy space, in the sense of wellness, is on an explosive growth track. And so today we're hearing from entrepreneur Reid, who is the founder of Cooled. Cooled is a cold tub rental service that partners with fitness studios to bring curated experiences and community to people who are looking to experience the benefits and sense of belonging that cold therapy can provide. Today, we're going to be hearing a little bit about his story of growing this business, what the plans are for the future, and what people as a whole can expect from this space in the coming years. Before we get to it, be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new episodes of the ATFW Industry Series every Monday and the Celebrity Series every Wednesday. This is ATFW. Chris, I love that you have always had what seems to be a strong connection with nature, following your passions and paths. So I'm going to rewind in your life and talk about, I understand you're from Montreal originally. How do you all of a sudden end up in the West Coast?
Yeah, in about 2008, I moved out west to plant trees. And all throughout British Columbia, there's tree planters plopping around, putting trees in the ground in the summer. And so you go west, and that's where I ended up. And I'm a city guy, so that's the perfect world was Vancouver for me.
So how did you make the connection then to go and plant trees? How did you even find out this was a thing?
Oh, it's a common activity for university kids. And I originally, it's popular too in Ontario, and that's where I started and grew up. And it's just a fun, wild adventure that I was able to do throughout my 20s. And it led me to my next thing, which was the garden business.
Yeah, so talk to me a little bit about that bridge, because as you mentioned, lots of uni students going out on this adventure, but then you decide to level up because obviously you saw something here.
Yeah, somehow working in the woods and working with my hands a little bit translated into seeing an opportunity in Vancouver to build temporary community gardens on private vacant land. We started building gardens in 2011, and we're still building gardens today.
Well, I talk a lot on this podcast about the wellness spectrum. I mean, there are so many facets that bring so many elements to our life that I feel are really important. And one that's very important to me is time spent in nature. So even something as simple as being in the buzz of the city and then having that space, I'm sure there is a power in that. But I'm curious because you have this amazing outdoor lifestyle, you're bringing this brilliant idea to life. Where do you start to niche into this health and wellness space? Because as an entrepreneur, that's really become all the facets that you put into your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I really like the service part of the gardens, where we were providing a service for our clients, which were the landowners, and we were providing a service to the community as well. But I wanted to get more into the health and wellness product sector, and that's what led me to the Canadian Pine Pollen Company, which now starts to make more sense with the tree planting and
little connection there.
Yeah, so it landed back in the forest once again, and the Canadian Pine Pollen Company was founded by me and three other friends, and pine pollen is a superfood that comes from the pollen of pine trees grown throughout British Columbia, and so the Canadian Pine Pollen Company was Canada's or North America's first pine pollen company, wild harvested from people going out there in the woods and shaking off the pollen. And we found a way to dry it all up and then package it up.
How did you become aware of the health benefits of that?
Oh, one of our partners was a big health nut, and he was a gym guy, and it's a natural form of testosterone. And
interesting.
And that's where he brought me in and my friend Shelby, because we were the forest guys, right? And so off we went and went out to the woods in the spring and started collecting a bunch and then drying it up.
How does that work? Like you just go on a forage mission and then how? Like
yeah,
talk me through this.
Yeah, we loaded
it's a
up
world
our
I don't
trucks,
know.
And fortunately, we really knew the woods. Me and and my friend Shelby, who I knew from tree planting as well. And we just loaded up, and we knew mapping systems and logging roads and which stands to find, and so that's where a lot of our experience from the woods kind of came back. And off we went, and you could research as much as you want, but until you really go and see the pollen buds itself, you just never know. And lo and behold, we drove out there and found the buds and dried them up.
That is so fascinating. I love how this is where there's always those connections. You go on this experience that, again, as I say, a lot of students partake in. You're in the forest. You realize it connects. You do the community gardens, which all of a sudden is this amazing act of service for a lot of people as well that don't have this available. Translates to another company, but then you weren't done. You continued to foray in that wellness space.
Yeah. After Pine Pollen, I really wanted to get into the kombucha business, and I love kombucha and I love drinks, and that's what landed me into my next journey. Was somehow a connection. I met Kara from Butcha Brew. Butcha Brew is a kombucha company in Delta, British Columbia, and Kara and I wanted to do something together and make a drink, and out created Arlo, a boozy kombucha that we brew also in Delta here in a winery. And so that's been really fun, jumping into the drink world. And then that drink led to our next drink, which is it's called Billion Trillion. It's a sparkling sake. And we also make it in the same spot with the same group of partners. Yeah.
That's so neat to have that connection with everyone as well when you grow. You start on the drink path, and then you're like, why don't I jump into the drink? Mm-hmm. You continue on the path. So you now have this new venture on the horizon, which is one of the most growing sectors. I believe the practice, we know, has been something done around the world for, hundreds, I'm sure even like beyond that of years. But now it's really coming to the forefront as something that people can challenge themselves with and really take a moment to cleanse their minds in a lot of way. Why was this the niche you were like, this is what's next?
Yeah, it came from personal experience where during COVID, there were some quiet days, and part of during my journey, I connected with the Cold Plunge crew, this awesome group of people here in Vancouver who go out and cold plunge, and started going to their events and attending. And Juno would text me, and we go down to Lynn Canyon every Wednesday and plop in the river. And I really started to notice a lot of the benefits that come with the experience, mostly around calming myself and preparing myself for the day or whatever is ahead of me.
Talk to me about your first cold plunge experience, because there's two things happening, I find. Number one, you're going to actually physically have this new experience. But number two, you're all of a sudden interacting with people you don't necessarily know, and it's back to that sense of community at the same time.
Yeah, my first true cold plunge experience was actually with my business partner, Kara, in Whistler. And I remember it was in the River of Golden Dreams, and it was winter, so there was snow on the ground, and she was doing it because she was fortunate to live in a great place near a nice river, and off we went and plopped ourselves in. And what I think helped propel things forward was the reaction that we got on social media. When we shared those experiences, you get a lot back, and that was really the fascinating opportunity here. Was this back and forth that through social media and sharing the story.
And what type of feedback were you getting? Because I know a lot of people are like, "Are you nuts?"
Yeah, it was, "Are you nuts?" and "This is so cool," and that. The right mix of those two, where they think it's a little bit crazy, but everyone knows it's in the health and wellness, and you're doing it for a good thing. Yeah.
Well, and I think because you get people that think I could never. There's this mental barrier to doing it. So how do you push through that? And what would you say to people that are on that cusp of, I'm seeing this and I think it's nuts, but also very cool, and I'd love to experience this for myself?
Yeah, that's the really fun thing about cold plunging is it's really accessible, where anybody can do it. And the more people see it, the more they get more comfortable with everybody doing it. And the walls start to drop down. on why they can't do it, and the excuses start to get peeled away. And then once the activity gets close enough in their circle where their friends are doing it, instead of their friends of friends are doing it, then they seek out opportunities to engage with the experience. And that's where Cool started, which is there's only so many opportunities to cold plunge with a community. And that's with a great one in Vancouver is the cold plunge crew. And a lot of communities have their own cold plunge crew group of people who go cold dipping. But sometimes those communities are hard to reach or hard to engage with. And what I've found is a lot of people didn't want to go by themselves. There's a blockage there that they want to do the activity with other people. And there's, I think, a safety element of doing something for the first time and wanting to bring a bit of a community with you to help through that. And that's where I saw a bit of an opportunity to provide a service and collaborate with other spaces in Vancouver, mostly in the health and wellness, to provide cold plunging opportunities for those spaces.
So tell me a little bit about what that looks like then as a business.
Yeah, it's as simple as equipment rentals and connecting with facilitators. So the formula we've kind of stumbled into, which is collaborating with a fitness studio. So last week was at Reid Cycle Studio, and with a bit of breath work afterwards, and that was facilitated by Dave Koo. And then we all went outside and did a 2-minute cold plunge. So you get a little bit of the physical activity, you get a breath work to kind of center you, and then you get a cold plunge experience.
What was the feedback from participants there that day?
Yeah, everyone is smiling, and it's great to go back on and see those pictures and see the smiles. All the health benefits tell you that your adrenaline is increasing by 200%, and that starts to trigger the serotonin, and you could really see that in everyone's faces. It's quite amazing that a lot of inhibitions get dropped, and everyone just really gets fully in the experience where you have 40 people standing on the sidewalk in downtown Vancouver in 5-degree weather in their bathing suits and just smiling and having a good time. It's a really bizarre sight that everyone can really gather around, and it's something is there when you see it. Something is a big spark. It creates a big spark in everybody.
Fitness World's 16 British Columbia high-value, low-cost gyms are committed to helping people reach their fitness goals, whatever those may be. Exercise and movement play a pivotal role in supporting people's overall health and wellness, and it is Fitness World's mission to provide the facilities, services, and amenities to help you achieve your fitness your way. Visit fitnessworld.ca for more information. How important do you feel that community or the guides are to push people through the resistance? Because I'm sure there's a mix of some that are like, all right, I'm in, I'm doing this. And then again, even in that moment, some where, our fears get the best of us.
It really helps that we had 4 tanks set up so they could do it with their friends. That's been really successful. Is you bring your own little squad and you hop in, and what we found is bringing the tanks to the fitness studios creates a really safe, welcoming environment where they might be comfortable with the fitness studio, and then these tanks are an extension of that studio. So it allows for a safe opportunity to dip your toe in, literally. And once you see everybody doing it and how simple it really is, then you start to hit these mental walls of, okay, why can't I do it? Everyone's sitting in there, and it's not a physically challenging exercise other than and you just sit there, and that's it. It's more a mental challenge, and there's certainly physical afterwards and a little bit during, but overall, it's just a mental challenge, and most people are starting to lean into those challenges. Okay, why can't I really do this? And it really is all in your head.
You talked about how the interest in this space kind of grew with the cold plunge crew. Did you find that crew started to grow more and more through COVID, or?
I think so. It's certainly grown in numbers, and their events. The last one was over 100 people come out to the beach it was, I think, 1 degree weather. There was snow on the sand.
Right on.
And people show up. And these ones are at the beaches in Kitts Beach. And they've been really fun. Similar model of movement, breath work, cold plunge. And that's really where I got my inspiration from is the experience that they've been able to create. And I look forward to all of our next events.
Something I find so fascinating about the space is that whenever I would think of cold dipping, aside from obviously Vancouver's home to the massive polar bear swim, but outside of that, it seemed really personal. And to a degree, absolutely, that mental challenge is so personal. But what I find so neat is the fact that you've really tapped in and unlocked the fact that it does build community. And I'm sure you would agree that over the last couple of years, we've never needed that more.
I fully agree. And that's really where I think the people have all come together on this one, where it's an accessible activity that anybody can do. That's good for you, but also allows for you to just connect with people and do something for yourself, in yourself, but with other people. Similar to almost dancing in a way of you're dancing with yourself, but with a whole group of people.
I love the way you put that.
It's movement, but in a group.
And so how has your cold plunge journey changed your life personally?
Yeah, it's built this great community. It's made a lot of really interesting connections, and it's been really good for my mental health. What do you think the future of cold plunge is?
I think it's going to grow massively.
How is it going to grow?
First of all, social media is a huge component. So I think social media is most definitely fueling a lot of the interest right now. But I think what's going to happen, so for example, I had never done a cold dip in my life. And then polar bear swim was the first time. And of course, it's not quite the setting that would be curated as an experience with yourself where you bring the tanks and you collaborate. It's more sense of community for sure, but pandemonium. However, the feeling in the aftermath, starting off the year, I had a sense of accomplishment, like I had done something for myself. And also I don't love being cold. I think there's a lot of people that are like that. And it was knowing that I was feeling euphoric amongst the discomfort and took that with me. And so I've done it several times thereafter, and not just on New Year's Day. But I think it will be a culmination of social media expediting the interest levels. And then those that get it will get it and will stick with it.
Yeah, that feeling you get, what you said, I think all people who do extreme movement, well, really any type of movement, that's the feeling they get and constantly seek. And marathon runners and extreme athletes constantly seek that discomfort. It's interesting. That's a whole nother topic. But and cold plunging lets you get a sliver of that experience and that feeling in a really accessible environment and way. And I do really agree with you on the social media component, where that's where I think I saw something happening, where when I would reshare or post anything cold plunge related, I got a lot of feedback from my tiny little community on Instagram. And that's when you start to realize, that's people like that. So then you do more of that in a way, and then people like it more, and it's this self-fulfilling snowball effect that kind of leads you to doing more and more of these cold plunges, and then all of a sudden you're their cold plunge person or their cold plunge friend, and then that's how you start to kind of connect other people to it, and you get connected with other people who want to participate.
Well, and I think that's where it's neat that you have people facilitate, because how important is that to the experience, first of all?
Yeah, you could do it yourself, but your mind will probably race and wander, and it's very similar to meditation, where you could meditate by yourself, but it takes a lot of training to get there. And there's a really great collective of facilitators here in Vancouver who take people through the journey and are just there to really almost mentally hold their hand, where they don't necessarily hold their hand, but they're just reassuring you that they're there and to work through some of the feelings and experiences physically, mentally during the experience.
How about the breath work component? Because especially when you speak to first trying out in Lynn Valley, I'm not sure if that was a huge part of it, but now you really are seeing the pairing when things like this are facilitated.
Yeah, Juno does always do a small breath work every time we're up in Lynn. And it really prepares you for the experience. And it gets you grounded, and it starts to physically move blood through your body. But also mentally, it starts to get you kind of pumped up and primed to sit in cold and to really change the physical thermodynamics of your body.
And I know you're more speaking from experiential, but what would you say are some of the benefits that you and your peers have noticed and taken with you?
At the highest level, it's made me stronger. And mostly on mentally, on how I'm able to receive information. So there's a calming effect that I'm able to tap into now on when the inputs get too much. And that's usually what happens when you enter cold water. You have a lot of inputs coming. All of your senses are firing up, and your body is telling you, escape, red alert, there's a problem here. But then that's when you start to tap into your mind saying, wait, there isn't a problem here. Everything is okay, and this is actually good for me. And so once you start battling that over and over, you start to get a little bit of practice, and then your body starts to quiet down. And then you're able to take that experience that you've had or that journey mentally and start to apply that into real-world day-to-day decisions. And so it just kind of grounds you and calms you out for all the inputs that fly your way.
And would you say cold plunging is something for everyone?
I think it could be. It's certainly an experience that everyone can try. And it's not necessarily an ice bath. Tality has ambient tanks that are non-ice tanks, so you can kind of start to phase into the temperature. And there's a big spectrum on the temperature of the water as well as how long you stay. And usually in our events, the water is around 5 degrees, give or take, and people want to stay in for about 1 to 2 minutes. 2 minutes is really when you start to feel the health effects. But there's a business down in Toronto called Othership. They're doing something really cool with the sauna and the ice baths. And their ice baths are, I think, 1.7 degrees when I went.
Fresh.
Yeah, and you stay in for only 2 minutes. They really don't want you staying in for that much longer. So there's a huge spectrum that you can jump into, whether that's room temperature water and then start to drop that temperature down and then stay a little bit longer every time.
And what would be the longest somebody would stay at a session? Like, is it something people aspire to work up to, or?
Some people are really good at it just right away. I've seen a lot of people come into the experience, never done it before, and they're able to stay 10 minutes at 2 degrees, and almost to a point where it's not good to keep pushing your body to those extremes. But they're able to take that. It's not necessarily pain, or take those inputs and control them.
That's so interesting. Like, I wonder what their differential is to be able to achieve that.
I wonder too. And it's really interesting. Some people just don't blink an eye, and they're able to do it, and they've never done it before. And some people are a little bit shocked and have a different experience.
Do you see that often? Some that go in and are just like, nope.
Yeah, at the events, we see everybody, and that's really fun with these events, where most people aren't cold plunge enthusiasts, and that they're doing cooled events because their fitness studio has kind of brought us all in together. And so you get the whole spectrum of people who are experienced in cold plunging, but also first-timers who just see this as a great way to do something fun and new and tell a good story on social media. And that's as well where facilitators are really great to help carry in these really new people and make sure that they're safe and looked after and taken care of.
Do you think it would be something that's bothersome at all if somebody's only doing it for the gram? Like, I feel like there's such a purpose behind it. So, or is it just kind of like, oh, well, the ones that get it?
I think it's an activity that anybody can do, and it is just sitting in cold water. So if people want to tell that story and fly their flag on that, I fully support that.
Love it.
It's all for their wellness, and I think the more we show that this is a great activity that anybody can do, and it's not that extreme, I think the better.
Well, and we kind of started this part off speaking to my thoughts of how this will grow, but what do you see as the future of cold plunging?
Yeah, it's really an interesting wave that's happening now. I think we're going to see more tanks, more personalized experiences, more at-home tanks, I think. I think people are going to want to have a cold plunge tank in their house. Similar to other at-home fitness equipment. And so I think it's going to become a little bit more personalized. And as well, I think we'll see some larger corporations try to monetize the experience somehow by connecting their brands to the community.
Yeah, and you were saying events as well. I mean, it would make so much sense to have it in that space.
Yeah, it's really fun, and just seeing the reaction that people have engaging with the cold water and packaging that up in events and experiences that we're doing here in Vancouver. It's just so much fun. Everyone's having a great time, and it's a really great ecosystem to engage with other brands in.
Perfect. All right. Is there anything else that in the cold plunge wheelhouse that you're like, we must know?
I don't know. I would just love to hear more about your experiences with cold plunging and how you got into it through the Polar Bear Plunge, which was really fun. I've seen every year. I've never done it before. Might do it this year,
yeah,
actually.
On the note of community, it is very fun in that fashion.
I think it's going to be really well attended, even though it is always very well attended. And but there maybe there should be we should all reach out and see if the cold plunge crew could kind of group people there on the New Year's Day.
Definitely, yeah. Last year, because obviously things were still a little weird last year, so we just got a little crew together and did it on Kitsilano Beach. And it is so true how it becomes so community oriented, because we trudged down with a little propane fire pit for after, which gathered the people. Mm-hmm. But again, it really is that sense of accomplishment in the get-go. And I find, and this is on such a minimal level, but when you're at an amazing glacial lake in the heart of the summer and there's still that I want to go in, but it's going to be fresh. It helps me power through that because I know what's on the other side is so good. So you're just like, I'm going, and I'll just straight-faced, kind of like those people that stay for 10 minutes, but not that on a very tiny level of just going for it. I really think it becomes a metaphor for your life that if I can do this, you've proven, you now have evidence to yourself that you can accomplish something that maybe you thought you couldn't or really scared you. It is not easy to put yourself through things that make you feel uncomfortable. Those are never easy paths. And we know in life, conversely, if you never put yourself in those moments that make you feel uncomfortable, life's going to create that discomfort for you. That's a given. So it's kind of choose your discomfort. And I'd rather have the one, not necessarily that I want to have control or ownership over, but I'd rather be able to create a space for myself that I know is something I can come back to, that when those discomforts I didn't wish for happen, there's an inner strength that you've exercised, really. I think that's how I view it. It's like exercising your mental muscle. And we don't always pay attention to that part enough.
Is there any other experiences, movement-based experiences that are similar to that mental training? The gym, not as much. It's pretty focused. I find that almost trail running is another way where you're in movement and you're teaching your brain to create new connections, and you're firing your brain to put your feet on the ground. And so that's. Is there any other physical activities that have that same benefit?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, conversely to what you say, because have done a lot of fitness competitions and such, when I am in the weight space and challenge and really focusing on mind to muscle connection, it's actually quite meditative for me. It was my introduction to fitness. I was a kid that tried out, I collected participation ribbons like a champ. Terrible at sports, like every activity, last in the heat. But I loved that community about it. However, in my adult life, I've really have used fitness as the spaces to just become meditative. It's like that mind clearing. Like I imagine I've not done trail running aside from when I was a kid and did cross country, but it is that same thing where you're kind of focused on the task at hand, but simultaneously there's a clarity that comes with it. Even though there is something you have to concentrate on, there is a clarity happening at the same time. This is why, honestly, as long as I'm gifted a body that allows me to push its limits, which first of all, what a gift. Not everybody has that gift. That is a huge privilege. I don't want to ever take that for granted. And I think that's where the attraction of those experiences happen. And then I'm sure subsequently for yourself, when, what you're really presenting on offer is a bath of discomfort, really, when you break it down.
But a cold bath.
Yes. You believe in it because you know that benefit on the other side. And that's kind of how I feel about the entire space, where I'm like, why aren't we all doing this for ourselves? And exactly as you say, everyone's faces smiling, laughing, whatever their experiences was in that moment. The aftermath is this joyful, infectious in the good way.
You're high. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Same with the runner's high. You get a runner's high, but it just takes 2 minutes to get that high. And
you want other people to have that in their lives, because I think we know to a degree, everyone deals with their own version of what is suffering. And if we can have these tools at hand to manage that better for ourselves, to communicate better with each other, which those communal spaces really create, I think that's something really beautiful. And the more people that are putting themselves behind that and to encourage each other to do that then, how you said, connected, that is our connection to each other. Because at the end of the day, people want to feel seen, feel heard, feel shared. Not that we have to have the same emotion, but that understanding that we are human, we are imperfect, and none of us know what the fuck we're doing. And that's okay.
Yeah, well said.
Before I let you go here, I love to leave people with a little mantra or a nugget of wisdom that you live by. And I definitely like to put people on the spot with it because they come up with the best ones.
Okay, yeah, you did put me on the spot. Right now, the mantra I'm going by is that everything is connected.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so everything's starting to connect and the web is getting tighter. And if you don't know why it doesn't connect, just wait and everything is connected.
You've just listened to All Things Fitness and Wellness, the Industry Series. This episode was brought to you by Fitness World. Your fitness, your way. New episodes of the Industry Series drop every Monday and the Celebrity Series every Wednesday. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you never miss out on hearing from industry thought leaders and influencers. We are on a mission to help everyone live a life fit and well.